The release sales order picking functionality helps warehouse employees gain an overview of the sales orders that are to be released for picking, based on actual availability of items and considering customer service priority. By using this platform for the picking process, you are ensured that only picking lists for items in stock are created. There are two forms to make the picking process easier: release sales order picking, which is used for sales orders, and release transfer order picking, which is used for transfer orders. Before you start using the release sales order picking form, you may want to set up customer classification groups. You can use customer classification groups to flag customers according to service priority. If back orders exist for sales order lines, one of the criteria that you can use to determine which sales orders must have quantity available allocated to them is the customer classification group that you attach to the customer for each line. Let's open AX and set up a classification group and then review the release sales order picking form. We'll start with the customer classification groups. These are found in the Sales and Marketing module. Then we'll go to the Setup area and expand Customer, and then select Customer Classification Groups. Here, you can create as many classification groups as you want. In my demonstration data, they've created 3 priorities: 1, 2, and 3. You could create another classification group for VIP customers. After you've created the customer classification group, you'll want to link it to one or more customers. You do this in the Customers form. So, underneath the Common area in the Sales and Marketing module, I'll open the All Customers form. We'll select a customer and then click Edit in the Maintain group of the Action pane. Here, on the Customer Details form, you can see the classification group in the General Fast tab. You click the drop-down box and then you can select any of the customer classification groups that are created. Next, we'll take a look at the Release Sales Order Picking form. This is found in Inventory Management. Then, underneath the Periodic folder, we'll open the Release Sales Order Picking form. You'll notice the Transfer Order Picking form right below it. For our example, we'll use Release Sales Order Picking. When you open the Release Sales Order Picking form, a query form is opened, which allows you to create a filter to filter the lines for any criteria that you wish. So for example, if I wanted to filter for that VIP customer group, I could select that in the drop-down box. Other things that you might do here are add a ship date. For example, if I'm looking for everything that will ship tomorrow or is expected to ship tomorrow. You can also filter by warehouse. This is important, especially in situations where you have multiple warehouses. You can also use the Add button to add any criteria. For my example, I'm just going to leave the filter wide open and click OK. This will open the Release Sales Order Picking form. If any sales lines are available in the system that can be picked, they'll appear in the Sales Line tab. Here you can see the basic information. If there is a customer classification group, you'll be able to see that information in the first column. You can see what the expected ship date is, the sales order, customer, and item information. At the far right, you'll see the quantity and the Activate Remainder quantity. If you continue to scroll to the right, you'll see several checkboxes and fields where you can update the settings on what should be activated. The Activate Remainder column indicates how many are left to be activated for picking. The Activate Now column allows you to manually type in the quantities that should be activated. This is useful if you want to manually decide who should get the inventory based on some priority that's determined outside of the system. The checkboxes will indicate what the state of the order is. The All Orders Can Be Delivered checkbox indicates that all of the items on this order can be delivered. The Requires Allocation checkbox means that no quantities have been allocated to this order yet, and they must be allocated. The Production Order Exists checkbox indicates whether or not a production order exists and is related to this particular sales order. The Transfer Order Exists will let you know whether or not there is a transfer order related to this particular sales order line. The Possible Delivery Percentage will show you how much of this particular order line can be delivered. There are buttons across the top of the form where you can update your criteria. You can use the Select button to filter the criteria further down. You can also use the Activation button to clear the activation or perform the activation. We'll talk more about these a little bit later on. The Release for Pick button is the button that you'll use to release the lines that have been selected for activation for picking. The Functions button allows you to cancel the remaining delivery quantity on a particular line. This is useful, for example, if you don't have the entire quantity available. So for example, the line I have highlighted is for a quantity of 147. Let's say I only had 145 available in my warehouse. I could go ahead and reserve 145 and then use the Deliver Remainder function to cancel the other two. The Trace Orders button allows you to perform inventory traces, and the Inventory button has standard buttons to drill down into the transactions, display various dimensions. When you make changes to the information on the screen, you may want to use the Recalculate button to recalculate the activation and reservations that are being allocated. You'll notice on the right-hand side in the middle section of the form, you can override the reservation method. This reservation method is being displayed based on the reservation method selected on the sales order line. At the very bottom of the form, there is another grid. I'll use the splitter bar here to move it up so we can see this information a little better. On the bottom half of the form, you can see the on-hand information. So in this case, there are only 43 physically available for this particular item. 22 have already been reserved, and there are only 21 left. If I wanted to, I could allocate all 21 of those items to this particular order line by typing 21 into the reservation quantity field. If you continue to scroll across on the lower portion of the screen, you can see how many are available for activation, how many on the picking list have not been reserved, and so on. At the very top of the form, there is a checkbox called Deduct Released for Picking. When you mark this checkbox, the system will deduct the quantities that cannot be picked. If you picking list update a sales order line without reserving the items on the line, it could appear that these items are available for use in another order, even though the items are designated for the original order by their inclusion in the picking list for the original order. By selecting the checkbox here, you can make sure that any order lines that are picking list updated but are not reserved are eliminated from this form. Let's talk about the activation process. By selecting one of the allocation methods from the Activation button, you can allocate on-hand inventory to all sales orders that fulfill the activation criteria. The Clear Activate Now option is used when you want to activate all the entries that are selected in the form. It will reset them back to their original values. The All Orders Where Entire Order Can Be Delivered option is used when you want to activate the lines in the picking list and have them filled with the value from the Activate Remainder field for all sales order lines that have 100% in the Delivery Percent field. For example, an order has 3 lines, and all the lines can be fulfilled by the current on-hand inventory for the selected inventory dimensions for that particular item. Therefore, the Possible Delivery Percentage field, the value of 100% is displayed. If you perform the activation by using the All Orders with the Entire Order Can Be Delivered option, This order will have its order lines activated with the appropriate quantity. Next is the All orders that have the status reserved physical. When you select this option, the activation field is filled out with the value from the reserved physical field minus the value from the picking list reserved field. All orders that do not require manual allocation is the next option. When you select this option, the activation field is filled in with the value from the activate remainder on the all sales order lines that have the all orders can be delivered checkbox selected. For example, if you select the all orders that do not require manual allocation option, on-hand inventory is allocated to all sales order lines where a flag appears for all sales orders can be delivered. When you have finished allocating the on-hand inventory, you can picking list update the sales order line. The sales order line remains in the view until you have updated the pick. To perform the pick, you use the Release for Pick button, which will open the standard picking screen to post the allocated picking lists en masse. In our next lesson, we will review the various techniques used for picking the sales order.